Good evening and welcome. So let me first say this is probably the last time Federation will hire me to do the technology. I'm Carrie Lackenbach, Chair Emeritus of the Jewish Federation of Greater Hartford. Among the responsibilities that come with this position is the privilege of leading our annual meeting, and this year I have the privilege twice. We apologize for the technical difficulties tonight. We are restarting our program, and we will also have a video available tomorrow, which we will send to all of you. I said earlier that I'd love to have a second drink, and I'm going to have a second drink. L'chaim. Oh, before I formally call the meeting to order, I invite you to join me in a toast to the new year, to each and every one of you, and to our amazing Jewish community. L'chaim. This meeting is officially called to order. Now we'll hear a brief Devar Torah from Rabbi Jim Rosen of Bethel Temple.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. It's an honor. And it's a marvelous thing that we're gathering together this evening to launch the new year with a celebration of Chesed, the Jewish idea of loving kindness, at this annual meeting of the Federation. It's a personal honor to be able to honor two remarkably devoted women as well. Carolyn Gitlin, who steps down from her role as chair of the Federation's board and who continues in her role as National Women's Philanthropy Chair on a national basis. And as well, Dana Keller, who steps forward into her role as chair of the Federation. Both of you are wonderfully gifted women who devote yourselves day and night to the well-being of our community in ways large and small. And we are also grateful for those who are recipients of the Henry M. Zach's Spirit of Judaism Award, a further celebration of chesed, of loving kindness in our community. This is the time of the year when we truly contemplate the very best versions of ourselves and our community. There is a well-known triad in Jewish life that the world is based on the pillars of Torah, Avodah, and Gemilut Chasadim, on Torah, Jewish wisdom, on Avodah, worship, and on elements of loving kindness. It's often thought that these are totally distinct elements, but in reality, they come to fuel each other, to inspire each other. We look to Jewish wisdom, to Torah, for the guidance and inspiration for making a far better world. We engage in worship that we might inculcate in ourselves a true sense of gratitude for the blessings we enjoy. And this in turn leads and flows into Gemilut Chasadim, acts of loving kindness that make a difference in people's lives, the people who need that help the most. It's not easy. We tire very easily from this work. It's one thing to be polite. It's a lot harder to constantly maintain the acts of helping others. But we know, especially during the pandemic, the true power of making a difference through tiny acts of alleviating loneliness and of helping others when they have great needs. The other challenge is that we can become judgmental. As Rabbi Israel Salanter once said, most people are very concerned about their own bellies and other people's souls. We ought to reverse it and be concerned about our own souls and other people's bellies. The physical needs of others is our spiritual agenda. And that is one of the reasons we fast on Yom Kippur, so we can know, we can be sensitized to the power of hunger and hurt so that we can go forward and make a difference. This time of the year, we go by the words of Hayom Harat Olam. Literally, the world is pregnant with possibility at this New Year's time. And how wonderful it is that this evening marks our community stepping forward into making that possibility a reality. Mazel tov to all, and let this be a year of contribution and a celebration and an implementation of chesed, of loving kindness. Thank you.
Folks, if for some reason you can't hear, make sure to unmute your computer setting. We are grateful to Rabbi Rosen for sharing his words of wisdom to help us start this new year off on the right foot. We have so much to celebrate tonight. Next, we'll see a brief video with some of the past year's highlights from our amazing Jewish community. After the video, our president and CEO, David Warren, will give the CEO's report.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. As we stand between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, recounting our deeds and our resolutions for the coming year, it's a propitious time to reflect on what we have learned as a community over the past year and really over the past 18 months from the onset of this pandemic. I believe there are 5 key lessons that not only speak to the incredible accomplishments of this community, but that, more importantly, illuminate our path forward. Lesson 1, the importance of strong community institutions. All of our community's institutions underwent a stress test, not a drill, not an exercise. Every one of them was pushed to the limits. With support from our Federation and the Jewish Community Foundation, virtually all of them met the test, helping the most vulnerable, engaging members with meaning and purpose, expanding outreach, and ensuring financial viability. Lesson 2, leadership matters. Professional staff and lay leaders across this community have worked tirelessly to overcome obstacles and meet new challenges. At Federation over the past 18 months, building upon the work of the Jewish Leadership Academy, we have repeatedly convened community leaders to learn from each other and outside experts, share best practices, and coordinate our response. Third lesson, the power of collaboration, of putting communal needs and interests ahead of individual interests. The power of the collective is enormous. In our community, philanthropists, leaders, and community members came together to strengthen the social service safety net and help the most vulnerable. Together with federations across the country, millions of dollars have been raised to support vulnerable Jews in Israel and around the world. Fourth lesson, the necessity of innovation. All of the challenge, all of the disruption we have experienced has also created incredible space for innovation. At Federation, innovation over the last year has meant creating a new Jewish free loan fund to help those in need with dignity. It has meant launching a comprehensive security initiative to ensure that we can safely engage in vibrant Jewish life. It means reimagining and expanding our support for impactful Jewish education. It also means launching Destination Hartford, a new initiative to encourage and welcome newcomers to our community. And it means commencing a community-wide planning process with the Jewish Community Foundation to ensure a thriving Jewish community over the next several decades. Fifth lesson, most important. Despite the challenges that all of us have faced, despite the uncertainty, so many have found ultimate meaning in their lives by helping others. It's the only way I can explain the extraordinary level of volunteerism and philanthropy across this community. It's also the theme of a remarkable book entitled To Heal a Fractured World by Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks of blessed memory. Rabbi Sacks writes, Jewish ethics is refreshingly down to earth. If someone is in need, give. If someone is lonely, invite them home. If someone you know has recently been bereaved, visit them and give them comfort. If you know of someone who has lost their job, do all that you can to help them find another. Rabbi Sacks continues, there is a Hebrew word, a key term of the Bible, for which there is no precise English translation. Simcha, usually translated as joy. What it really means is the happiness we share, or better still, the happiness we make by sharing. By that measure, despite all of the challenges of the last 18 months, Simcha, the happiness we make by sharing, has been evident every day across the breadth of this amazing community. We at Federation have been proud to join with you in that Simcha. In closing, I want to thank Carolyn Gitlin and Dana Keller. Our accomplishments over the last year are in large part due to their leadership and their wisdom. I also want to thank the Board of Directors, the Federation staff, our partners at the Jewish Community Foundation, and all of our partner agencies, schools, and synagogues who turn the dream of a strong and vibrant Jewish community into reality every day. Now please join me in welcoming my friend Gail Temkin, Chair of the Jewish Community Foundation's Board of Trustees, to give a brief report on the Foundation's activities.
Thank you, David, and good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to be part of your Simcha. I'd like to share with you about our fiscal year 2021 grants. Over 1,100 grants totaling $4.4 million, not including the Rapid Relief and Recovery Fund. Of the $4.4 million total, $1.4 million went to the Jewish Federation, $2 million went to other local Jewish institutions, and $1 million went to other national Jewish and Israel organizations, plus local and national secular charities. The Federation and Foundation continued to build our collaborative efforts this past year. How lucky Jacob Schreiber and I are to have had the honor of working side by side with Carolyn and David. This has been an intentional process born out from our respective strategic plans. Here are some of the fruits of these efforts. Together, we granted more than $600,000 to 28 local Jewish institutions from our joint Rapid Relief and Recovery funds. Together, we launched the Joint Community Vision Planning Initiative to identify key priorities as we look to enhance Jewish life in Greater Hartford. Meanwhile, the Foundation is supporting key Federation initiatives through our Community Grants Program, including $45,000 to the Jewish Leadership Academy, $47,000 to Destination Hartford, and $50,000 to the Secure Community Initiative. Some other community grants worth noting include organizational stabilization grants of $150,000 to the Mandel JCC and $25,000 to Chabad's Friendship Circle to help them recover from severe financial challenges due to COVID-19. A 3-year $75,000 grant to Mikveh Beth Israel to professionalize its operation, $60,000 to the New England Jewish Academy to transform its early childhood program by implementing the Reggio Emilio educational philosophy. The Foundation investments and growth is powered by prudent investing and a very strong bull market that achieved a 35% return on our investments in fiscal year 2021, increasing our asset value from $125 million in June 2020 to $168 million in June 2021. This was further bolstered by opening dozens of new funds and raising a total of $6.8 million in 2021. Moving forward, we continue doing what we do best, work to endow our community agencies and synagogues. To this end, we are in the first year of coordinating the Life and Legacy Program, a 4-year endowment initiative with 14 participating Jewish institutions aimed at achieving a total of 500 afterlife endowment gifts to ensure their long-term financial sustainability. At the same time, the Foundation, together with the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, are working with Henry Zaks and the Zaks Family Foundation on Endow Hartford 21, a bold matching grant initiative, seeded by $1 million matching commitment from the Zaks Family Foundation. Endow Hartford 21 will raise cash to create and bolster the endowments of over 50 local Jewish and secular nonprofits in our community. In summary, I think I can speak for everyone at the Foundation when I say that we're inspired by what we've accomplished in partnership with the Federation over the past year, and we look forward to another great year ahead. Now I'd like to invite Eric Zaks to the podium to present the Henry M. Zaks Spirit of Judaism Awards.
Thank you, Gail. It's great to be here tonight. The Henry Zaks Spirit of Judaism Award was initiated 7 years ago to honor my dad's 80th birthday. A core value of the Federation is bringing together and recognizing all aspects of our amazing Jewish community. The award recognizes 2 unsung heroes, a layperson and professional who have tirelessly contributed to our community but are not well known for their efforts. We're fortunate that we have 2 incredible award winners this year. Stuart Rabinowitz as the lay recipient, and Shayna Gopin is the professional. First, regarding Stuart. Each day, Stuart displays everything this award embodies with his work over the past 40 years. Yes, 40 years at Temple Beth Tefillah. Frankly, many have never heard of this hidden gem in East Hartford. Stuart, learning the lessons of his parents and passing them on to his children, has, along with his wife Jenny, been the glue that has held Temple Beth Tefillah together. He organizes all the special requirements for Holy Day services. He heads communications. He oversees maintenance. He coordinates fundraising appeals. Stuart is kind. He is humble. He is hardworking. He is a quiet and effective leader. In short, Stuart is a mensch. Stuart, on behalf of our entire community, please accept the Spirit of Judaism Award.
I would like to thank the Zaks family for sponsoring this award and the committee for selecting me. I must admit that I was initially stunned and a bit speechless when I received the call that I had been voted this honor. I also want to thank Rabbi Snyder for nominating me, and additionally, I want to recognize and honor the other nominees for their contribution and service to their respective communities. In the past week or so, I've been reflecting on its meaning. I recall the sermon given by Rabbi Snyder regarding the concept of the Jews as being the chosen people and what that means within a community. It is our actions that express our ideals, and is what we've done that matters. It is a lesson I learned from my parents, who were deeply involved with the Westville Synagogue in New Haven and Brothers of Joseph Synagogue in Norwich, to which we belonged. My dad served in various capacities and as president of the congregation. My mother was deeply involved in Sisterhood, Hadassah, and the Shevra Kadisha. None of what I have done would have been at all possible without the assistance of my wife Jenny and the support of the other members of Temple Beth Tefillah. Lastly, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Federation for its partnership and the community for its support. Thank you again.
Shayna Gopin may have a very famous last name in our community, but in her own right, she is an unsung hero. For over a decade, she's led Friendship Circle, which has brought hundreds of teens together with disabled members of the community to get to know each other and share Jewish values. This inclusive program enables all Jews to share in the joy of Judaism. When she arrived in Hartford 14 years ago, she started women's learning groups that have helped to inspire many Jewish women in our community. She has taught about the mikveh, and the laws of purity. Most importantly, she attributes her passion to her parents, who have been emissaries at Tulane, and for the past 14 years in West Hartford, to her in-laws, Rabbi Joseph Gopin and his wife Miriam. She has been guided by the Rebbe and inspired by the work of Fruma Shapiro as she gracefully manages the dance of a Jewish woman as a mom, wife, and community leader. She and her husband Shaya are true partners in their work. Shayna, on behalf of our entire community, please accept the Spirit of Judaism Award.
Thank you, Federation and the Zaks family, for the Spirit of Judaism Award. My husband, Shaya, and I want to give a shout out to our amazing team at Friendship Circle: Tammy, Mushki, Jocelyn, Marsha, and Kevin. For the past 14 years, we have been bringing together children, teens, and young adults living with and without disability for Judaic and social programming, and most of all, facilitating many friendships and connections for a segment in our community that potentially could be very isolated. Several years ago, we received a call from a woman. Her child was approaching his 13th birthday, and as a devoted Jewish mother, she was wondering if Friendship Circle would create a tailor-made bar mitzvah for her son living with Angelman syndrome. To us, it wasn't a question of if we would say yes, but how would we get the job done? Because as a chassid, a student of the Chabad Rebbe, I grew up with these words ringing in my ears since I was a child. Torah tziva lanu Moshe, morasha v'hilas Yaakov. Torah and being part of the Jewish community is every child's inheritance and the birthright of each and every one of us. We broke down the steps visually, how to wrap tefillin. His family found the most sensory-friendly kippah, and I saw Gabe with tremendous effort hone his fine motor skills and master the art of dropping a coin into the slot of a charity box. Using the universal language of music, he sang and played instruments through a beautiful Havdalah service, and Shaya rapped an original composition as his message to the Bar Mitzvah boy. The Rebbe taught us that every Jew is as dear to God as an only child born to parents in their old age. And what a privilege it is that for the past 14 years at Friendship Circle, we have treasured every member of our community, and more so, shone a spotlight on their abilities. Thank you, Dana Keller, for nominating me for tonight's award, and the awards committee for acknowledging the work of Friendship Circle. Dana, we studied together for close to a decade, and your family's partnership with Friendship Circle strongly influenced our growth. I am very blessed with my beautiful family, and this award is for all of us because our Chabad work is done as a team.
Now I'd like to welcome Carrie back to the podium, who will introduce our leadership changes for this coming exciting year. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. And Yasha Koach, Stuart, and Shayna. You are enlightened winners. We have a number of leadership changes taking place tonight, and I'd like to begin by acknowledging our outgoing committee chairs. Benjamin Adler, Chair of Destination Hartford. Jill Dolitsky, Chair of the Education Committee. Alan Parker, Chair of the Jewish Leadership Academy Advisory Board. Stephen Robb, Chair of the Jewish Community Relations Council. And Eric Zaks, Chair of the Community Trustees. Now I'd like to call on Carolyn Gitlin, current Chair of the Federation Board, to recognize our outgoing officers and board members.
Thank you, Carrie. It is my pleasure to be able to address the community. This annual meeting comes between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, a time of reflection. The Jewish New Year calls upon us to both reach back into the past and reflect, and step forward and look into the future. This has been a year like no other, and it has been an immense honor to chair the Federation Board and see how our community has stepped up and said, Hineni, here I am. This is the point in the meeting where we honor and recognize our outgoing board members and officers. Some are stepping off the board and others are stepping into new roles, but they all share a remarkable commitment to our Jewish community, and we are so grateful. Our outgoing board members are Bruce Goldsmith, Alan Parker, and Ann Martha Pittigoff. Our outgoing officers, other than myself, include Dana Keller, who is transitioning from first vice chair and vice chair of the general campaign to chair of the board. Judy Schlossberg, vice chair of women's philanthropy. David Rosenthal, who is transitioning from vice chair of planning and community impact to vice chair of the general campaign. Gary Starr, vice chair of long range planning. Ann Martha Pittigoff, our treasurer and chair of the finance and administrative committees, who has just completed 10 years on the board. And Robert Stillman, who is transitioning from assistant treasurer and audit committee chair to treasurer and chair of the finance and administrative committees. And last but not least, Carrie Lackenbach, our chair emeritus and governance committee chair. From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank all of you for your service. A few of our professionals tonight are also marking milestones, and I want to thank them for their continued service. Heather Rubin Fiedler and Susanna McNeil are celebrating 5 years. Janice Apple and Laura Zimmerman are celebrating 20 years. And Lisa Vaith, listen to this, celebrating 30 years. We're also indebted to the lay leaders who have gone before us. Isaac Newton once said, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." We lost 3 of our former giants this year. Let's take a moment to remember them. Edward Fishman previously served on our administrative committee and the board of directors. Benjamin Goldfarb previously served on the Federation board and was a life community trustee. And David Weintraub previously served on the board of directors. Let's pause for a moment of silence. Many of us are still pondering our rabbi's sermons during this holy time. It's a time for feeling reflective and hopeful and for looking ahead. As my term comes to an end, I'm feeling reflectful and hopeful. When I look at all we have accomplished as a community and when I think about what lies ahead, because our community and our federation is built for times like this, we step up and say, Hineni, here I am. When it comes to our fellow Jews in need, we say, Hineni. When it comes to supporting our agencies and institutions, we say, Hineni. When it comes to supporting Israel, we say, Hineni. And when it comes to securing our communities and making them safer, we say, Hineni. I want to share just a few stories of how we have said Hineni locally and globally over the past year. In July, David Warren, Jill Dolitsky, and I participated in Jewish Federations of North America Leadership Solidarity Mission to Israel. We saw our gifts to Federation at work all over the country. One of the most moving examples was in Sderot, where we met the parents of a 5-year-old boy who was killed in his safe space by a rocket attack. It was every parent's worst nightmare. But thanks to you, they didn't have to face it alone. Within 24 hours, Federation and its partners were on the scene with emotional, financial, and logistical help. This year, we not only witnessed your incredible generosity in response to COVID-19, we also saw how forward-thinking our community can be. Inspired by the Rapid Relief and Recovery Fund, several families decided to establish the Jewish Free Loan Fund of Greater Hartford with founding gifts of $250,000. It's now providing interest-free loans across our community, a hand up instead of a hand out, for families and small business owners in need. Some of those funds approved so far include a small business loan to help a carpenter keep his business from going under during the pandemic, a personal loan to help a new mother pay for daycare so she can work, and a personal loan to help a father cover the high health insurance deductibles for his child's surgery. David and I made securing our community a top priority when we started 2 years ago. I am proud to announce that our new Community Security Director, John Colangelo, has begun making our community safer. He has already met with Jewish leaders all over Greater Hartford, and we have received immense gratitude from our community. For the first time, we have a comprehensive approach to keeping our community safe, and it's our honor to serve you. So much about this year has been unusual, but with your generosity also allowed some very important traditions to continue, like Jewish camping. This summer, you helped 38 local children attend Jewish summer camp for the very first time, including Thomas, who wrote us that camp was awesome and that scholarship helped so much. As we know, camp has a lasting impact on Jewish identity, and we know because you have told us. This summer, we published a guest Shabbat message from Camp Laurelwood, and we received a thank you letter from a 92-year-old man who had camped at Laurelwood back when they were still sleeping in tents. He told us, "I learned how to swim there, and I still have wonderful memories." As I end my term as chair of the board, I want to thank each and every one of you for your commitment to this community. The last 2 years have been an incredible journey. I especially want to thank my husband, Jeff, my children, Alexander, Melissa, and William, and my family and friends for all their support. And I want to thank David Warren and the incredible professional team at the Federation. I feel so blessed to have partnered with David over the last 2 years. He is an absolute gift to this community. David, I can't thank you enough for everything. You are such a visionary, and I'm excited to see how you will build on this momentum and take Federation and Greater Hartford to even greater heights. And on that note, I couldn't think of a better partner for you to work with than my dear friend, Dana Keller, as the next chair of the board. Dana, you are so dedicated, passionate, and committed to this community, and I know you will lead with your heart. The two of you will be a dynamic team. I am so appreciative to have had this experience of chairing the board. It has been an honor and a moment in time that will stay with me forever. And I look forward to taking all that I have learned and bringing it to Jewish Federations of North America as the chair of National Women's Philanthropy. And may we go from strength to strength. Lashana Tova. And Carrie, I'm turning the podium back over to you.
Carolyn, you're almost done. It's really hard to believe. I'd like to share a few personal thoughts with you. Your current journey arguably started 3 years ago when you were selected as first vice chair, a position you held for 1 year before becoming chair. Your strengths that led to your selection were your supreme engagement skills and success in reaching people. But in that year as first vice chair, you distinguished yourself for your leadership and strategic skills. As co-chair of the Community 21 Task Force and as co-chair of the search committee that led to the hiring of David Warren. We surely know how that turned out. But the task force made a significant contribution in setting the future direction of Federation. As Chair Carolyn, you were certainly fortunate to have David Warren as your professional partner, but I believe the converse is equally true. Your strategic sense, willingness to ask tough questions, your mentorship of many board members, and the sincerity of your esteem for the professional staff made you a valuable partner. That made the Federation a much more effective organization, and the results speak loudly. I know you're not done with us, even though you have a huge role at Jewish Federations of North America, in part because one of the people you mentored and nurtured, your good friend and ours, Dana, is succeeding you. Carolyn, kol hakavot, and thanks from all of us. Now it's time for the business portion of our meeting. I'll keep it short and sweet. As chair of the Governance Committee, it is my responsibility to present the report of the nominating committee for your approval. I'll share the nominees with you, and then we'll take an online vote. I'll explain how in a minute. Our new nominees for Life Community Trustee are Ethan Goldman, Theodore Kaplan, David Miller, Alan Reisner, and Raymond Weinstein. Those being nominated as community trustees for a third term are Gerald Goldberg, Neil Cochin, and Gary Starr. Being nominated as a community trustee for a second term is David Gellis. Our new nominees to the board of directors are Stephen Baer, Jill Dulitsky, Juanita Moss, David Weiner, and Robert Yass. The nominees for a second term are Ronald Cipriano, Risa Filkoff, Judy Schlossberg, Leslie Silvers, and Tracy Tabak. The nominee for a third term is David Brandwine. The nominee for a fourth term is Carolyn Gitlin. The nominee for a fifth term is Gary Starr. The following are our nominees for officers of the Federation for a 2-year term. Dana Keller, Chair of the Board. David Rosenthal, Vice Chair of Development for the General Campaign. Jill Dulitsky, Vice Chair of Development for Women's Philanthropy. Benjamin Adler, Vice Chair of Planning and Community Impact. Stephen Baer, Vice Chair of Long Range Planning. Robert Stillman, Treasurer and Chair of the Finance and Administrative Committees, and Robert Yass, Assistant Treasurer. And now it's time to vote on the governance slate. I'll ask for a motion and a second in the public chat, and then everyone will have an opportunity to vote. You can see a vote button below your chat box. Click the button and then vote yes to approve the slate or no to oppose it. Your vote is anonymous. May I have a motion for approval in the public chat? Will someone second the motion in the chat? Now please click the vote button below the chat box. Cast your vote right away. All in favor, vote yes. Any opposed, vote no. We'll calculate the votes in just a moment. According to our bylaws, every member of the Federation, which means anyone who contributes $1 or more to the annual campaign, is eligible to vote. I'm told that the votes are in and the slate is approved. So moved. Mazel tov to all of our new and returning leaders. Carolyn and Dana, would you please join me at the podium? We are delighted to introduce Federation's new chair of the board, Dana Keller. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you, Carrie. Dana, I'm going to look at Dana and not at the crowd that's watching. It's a tradition that the chair passes along to the new chair the gavel. This gavel has been in the Federation for many, many years in the hands of great leaders, and you are going to be one of those great leaders. And it is my privilege and honor to hand to my dearest friend the gavel. I'm so proud of you. Mazel tov.
Whoa. Okay. Thank you, Carolyn, and thank you, Carrie. I need to breathe for a minute here. It is my sincere privilege and honor to stand before you tonight and accept the position of chair of the board of the Jewish Federation of Greater Hartford. Before I start, I would like to thank my family. Jonathan, my loving husband, who stands by my side, always encouraging me, and Lily and Sasha for supporting and loving me throughout this Jewish journey of mine. I am doing this work for them and all the children of our community. We are all doing this work for our children and to leave this community better than how we found it. I also want to give thanks to my parents, Jerry and Steve Rudman of blessed memory. They set an indelible example for my sister and me of tikkun olam, repairing the world. My upbringing of Jewish values and commitment brought me to where I am standing right now. My only regret is that they are not here to see me take this day. And of course, I need to thank Carolyn Gitlin, our inspiring, outgoing chair. Thank you for the beautiful job you have done over the past 2 years. And I wish you only luck as the new chair of Federation's National Women's Philanthropy. This community is better because of your leadership. We have shared our Jewish journeys together as partners and dear friends, and that has made tonight all the more special. And Mazel Tov to the recipients of the Henry M. Zach Spirit of Judaism Award, Shayna Gopin and Stuart Rabinowitz. As you heard Shayna talk about in her video, we started a study group many years ago, and that study group resulted in a beautiful friendship between Shayna and me. You are both most deserving of this award. This is my Shehachianu moment. My rabbi, Jim Rosen, used this phrase on the second day of Rosh Hashanah after Rabbi Zirin so eloquently spoke about this prayer in her sermon, and it just grabbed me. As we bring in the new year, I know it will be a better year, a time to begin again. I have learned that we are even more resilient and courageous and can look to our tomorrows with hope and excitement. My Shehachianu moment. Think of your moment and recite the prayer with me. And even though I can't see you or hear you, I will feel your presence. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, shehachianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Blessed are you, our God, sovereign of all, who has kept us alive, has sustained us, and brought us to this season, this day. Thank you. Now I would like to talk about the year to come and share some of my goals. The first goal I will be talking about is connection and gratitude. Our Jewish Federation, the Jewish Community Center, Jewish Family Services, the Foundation, and other agencies, along with our Jewish day schools and synagogues, have touched even more people this year. It's one of the silver linings of this pandemic. Connection was all around us. We called people and had real conversations. We Zoomed many community events and had larger turnouts than ever before. We touched our community without being in the same room. And we thanked members of our community for their efforts to make Greater Hartford a thriving place to be Jewish. It was truly remarkable. One of my fundamental priorities is to keep these connections going and to find new ways to connect and show gratitude. This community works hard to make Greater Hartford an even better place to raise a Jewish family, no matter what the family may look like. And it's because of you that this community is flourishing. In the coming months, I will share a gratitude plan with you, and let's stay connected. My next goal is concerning an inclusive community. I want to make sure our federation meets you wherever you are on your own personal Jewish journey. Let's share innovative and exciting ways to convene and connect. I want to reinvigorate our Jewish education no matter where it takes place and no matter what it looks like. Our children and grandchildren should be strong and proud of their Jewish identity. I want to include all Jews, Reform, Conservative, Orthodox, Interfaith, and Jews of color. Let's discuss our Jewish values and ideas with each other, and let's educate ourselves in the process. Everyone here tonight has a Jewish story to tell. What is your why, and what is your purpose? Our staff and lay leaders are already working in this area, and I plan to move it ahead with their help. And my last goal is about combating anti-Semitism. As we all know, the number of anti-Semitic acts is the highest it has been in years. At Federation, we're going to expand our efforts to combat anti-Semitism. This will include educating our community, mobilizing interfaith allies to stand with us, combating media bias, supporting students on campus, and deepening our connections to Israel. This will be one of my top priorities, and I plan to get to work on it right away. I would not be able to take on this role without the partnership and support of the Federation staff. In this past year as vice chair of the board, I have truly seen a cohesive and collaborative staff who work well together and with the lay leaders. I especially want to express my gratitude to Haley Wasser, Lori Mandel, Susanna McNeil, Laura Zimmerman, Heather Rubin Fiedler, Cheryl Woolmer, and Bob Friedman. They make all of our lay leaders look good, including me. I look forward to our continued work together. And a special shout out to Haley, my partner in the annual campaign. I couldn't have chosen a better partner, and your work in your first year with us was exemplary. And of course, last but never least, I want to sincerely thank David Warren. His leadership and work ethic are truly exceptional. I have learned so much from him this past year, and I am really excited to be his partner in the year to come. He makes me a better leader, and for that, I am grateful. Thank you for sharing my Shehechianu moment with me tonight. I hope to connect to you soon. I am thrilled for this opportunity. L'shana tova. May we go from strength to strength. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Dale Atkins. Dr. Atkins is a licensed psychologist and a relationship expert with more than 40 years' experience. She focuses on families, wellness, stress management, and living a balanced, meaningful life. Dr. Atkins is the co-author of The Kindness Advantage, and she has written 6 other books and many publications for popular and professional audiences. She has led seminars around the world and appears regularly on NBC's Today and CNN. Dr. Atkins lives right here in Connecticut and is a longtime volunteer with ADL. If you tuned into our webinars on combating anti-Semitism with ADL and the Simon Wiesenthal Center earlier this year, she will be a familiar face. She served as a moderator. You will see a button below the chat for questions. If you think of a question during Dr. Atkins' segment, please click there to ask it. Dr. Atkins, it's delightful to have you with us. We can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Dana. I wish you all the best as you take over the gavel as chair of the board, and best of luck to Carolyn, Mazel Tov to Shayna and Stuart. And thank you, David, for inviting me to speak with you at this meeting. Your kindness for so many years continues to encourage and sustain me. Carolyn referred to you as a gift, and it's so true. It is through you that I became acquainted with the Hartford Federation and worked with Alana and Martha, Samantha, and Susanna, and my life is deeply enriched because of that. Tonight, I've been invited to share some thoughts about the kindness revolution, building a strong and vibrant Jewish community through everyday actions. I will share why it's important and what the benefits are, and I will also include some actions that each of us can take. I'd like to begin by asking you what you think kindness is. Our responses are both personal and situational. What did kindness look like in your life when you were growing up? Who was kind to you? How did their kindness make you feel? What were the ways kindness was communicated? And who were and who are your kindness role models? And at this moment in your life, where and with whom is there kindness? In our book, we define kindness as paying attention, showing patience, communicating respectfully, and showing compassion and concern for others. About a year ago in 2020, His Holiness the Dalai Lama said, "The more you nurture a feeling of kindness, the happier and calmer you will be." He was onto something, and now we have much science to support his statement. Kindness stimulates the production of serotonin, the key hormone that stabilizes our mood, our feelings of well-being, and increases happiness. It also, decreases pain because of the release of endorphins. Those are the chemicals that reduce depression, anxiety, and improve self-esteem and enhance our immune system, and also help in healing wounds. People who perform acts of kindness report having more energy and feel stronger after they help others. They report increased feelings of self-worth and optimism, and volunteers have fewer aches and pains and better overall health and are slower to age and are less likely to die younger than their non-volunteer counterparts. When you perform an act of kindness, your brain's pleasure and reward centers light up as if you were the recipient, not the giver, of the good deed. This is referred to as the helper's high. We feel good about what we did and we want to do more acts of kindness. Similarly, the recipient feels good and wants to do an act of kindness. And even someone witnessing an act or reading about it or watching it through TV, on the news, that person also gets an emotional, warm feeling, which is called moral elation. And that releases oxytocin. You may know that as the cuddle hormone. Oxytocin has the power to regulate our emotional responses that have to do with pro-social behaviors, trust, empathy, positive memories, processing of bonding cues, and positive communication. I encourage you to read many of the scientific studies about the positive effects of kindness on our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. Kindness is contagious, and kindness is remembered. To quote Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs of blessed memory, "The good we do lives on in others, and it is one of the most important things that does." When we are motivated by a true spirit of generosity, and we feel a connection, the spirit of generosity and the connection, we benefit as much as those people who receive the act of kindness. Your Hartford Federation is doing this as a group. Imagine the improvement in the collective health of your entire community. Kindness revolutionizes our lives, our families, our communities, and performing acts of kindness over time gives our life meaning. An important part of resilience is to find meaning in challenging situations. How we emerge from an emergency. How do we do that? The late Reb Zalman Schachter Shalomi asks, how do we emerge from an emergency? What is the role of kindness in our emergence? How are we transformed, and how do we weave every experience into our own fabric? Kindness reminds us of our humanity and our connection to each other. And again, to quote Rabbi Sachs, small acts of kindness can change and humanize our world. We are social beings. We are meant to be part of a community. Judaism is a religion of community. We pray as part of a minyan. We gather for life cycle events. Our traditions make certain that we offer meaningful support to the vulnerable among us. We do this by participating in tzedakah, justice and righteousness, and gemilut hasadim, acts of loving kindness. We are part of something much bigger than ourselves, and each of us has a contribution to make, and when we all do it, it reinforces that connection. Tonight, we've already heard about Tikkun Ha'olam. Rabbi Julie Hilton Dannon says, "We Jews are dreamers and fixers. We want to solve problems and make life better, and we want to make the planet better for everyone. But sometimes the problems can seem overwhelming to even dream of fixing. It's almost like the world is something vast out there, when in reality, the world is here, in and with all of us. Our tradition teaches that each person is an entire world. We always have the power to respond, whether by learning, dialoguing, donating, demonstrating, or maybe, and this is Rabbi Danan speaking, I think that this is more important than ever, just doing something small and personal and kind that makes a difference to someone. The words of Tikkun Olam, they're translated as repair the world, mend the world, heal the world. We repair the world in our human actions. As part of a group, we share experiences. We create and make shared memories, our stories that we tell, recall and reflect our experiences together. We build trust, we collaborate, we value and respect each other as we do good. And that motivates us to do more good or kind acts. Your vision of Federation is so much more than a fundraising group. You are such change makers. Your goals are about growing and sustaining a vibrant Jewish community for this generation and the next. I shared our definition of kindness, and I'd like to introduce you to the 10 fundamentals of kindness that we focused on in our book. I invite you, hopefully at a later time, to examine each one and notice its place in the creation and the maintenance of your vibrant Jewish community. Acceptance, commitment, connection, empathy, giving, interest, nurturing, observing, questioning, and being yourself. Apropos of being yourself, you may know the story of the Hasidic rabbi, Reb Zusha. His students once asked him about his greatest fear. He replied that he wasn't worried about living up to Moses or Abraham. Rather, his concern was that upon his death, God would ask him, Zusha, why weren't you Zusha? A strong, vibrant community is made up of individuals. Each of us is unique and therefore has a unique contribution to the mission. One of you sent me the question, how to create Jewish community on a deep level so people feel known, heard, and supported. Thank you for that question. Wear name tags. Begin meetings with a short activity where you make a genuine effort to get to know something about each other. Interview each other. Ask a question about someone's background. What's their favorite food? What's their favorite book? It can be something simple, like where they're from, what's their hobby. You can ask one another to share an experience where they learned something about themselves that surprised them or made them feel good about themselves. Before we can practice kindness, we need to notice kindness. So we can learn to look through a lens of kindness. Pay attention to a kind act, a kind word. In this moment, there was kindness. We often pay attention to that which is unkind. We could do or receive 10, 15, 20 acts of kindness and not pay attention. And maybe we only pay attention to the one big kind, unkind act. Sometimes we take for granted the kind acts. We need to begin to notice and attend to the acts of kindness in ourselves and in others, whether professionally or personally. There are countless opportunities to be kind. We can remember to ask, what is the kind thing to do or say in this situation? Will doing or saying this hurt the person or the situation? What do I need to do to work through this situation with kindness? Do I need more time, more sleep? How can I shift to take the other person's perspective? Your Jewish Community Relations Council presented Zoom panels discussions last summer where you explored racism through the eyes of local Black leaders, bridging and caring, two of your essential values that you are mapping as part of your initiative. We saw them on the beautiful video that you showed. You discussed how to have difficult conversations about hate with your children and teens. And this spring, the JCRC and the Jewish Leadership Academy launched a series on community conversations on racial inequity to help Jewish community educate itself on systematic racism and the impact, bridging, caring, shaping, enriching. You are committed, and your work shows that this is what you're committed to. As Dana said, I was honored to participate in 3 of the anti-Semitic programs you did, which you co-sponsored with other programs. It was my pleasure. So before we began this evening, just as we began, Rabbi Rosen spoke about chesed. It's often translated as loving kindness. And I'm so grateful that he started that way. So chesed is giving oneself fully with love and compassion. I love this description because it gets at the motivation behind the act itself. The Vietnamese monk, teacher, and activist Thich Nhat Hanh refers to compassion as a verb. One must not just notice another's suffering or feel it in our heart. One must be moved to act to alleviate another's suffering, and that's what we're about. Compassion and action are one. They go hand in hand. We are wired for compassion. We are also wired for compassionate action. Rabbi Sarah Pasha Orlov reminds us that acts of chesed are the active representation of a covenant among people, a social contract, if you will. This has the mythic power to actively engage God in the covenant as well. It is when we become engaged with real people in real communities on the other end of our giving time and resources that we realize that covenantal aspect of chesed. You are doing this. You're building bridges between generations and communities. Your Children's Reading Partners program, where you pair adults and kids at risk to help these children develop their reading skills as well as the relationship skills. That's what you're doing. Jewish Federation has built bridges with other marginalized groups. You demonstrate deep caring for women and girls with your Dignities Grows program, when you provide essential hygiene supplies to those people who can now go to work and go to school unburdened. And these are the essences of building a strong and vibrant Jewish community, as is being a role model. We have the ability, and I would argue the responsibility, to model kindness. We are being observed by children, ours and others, and other adults, even when we don't realize it. We strive to be kindness role models. How do we do it? As I asked you earlier, I said, think about who are your kindness role models. Where did your ideas about kindness come from? Begin to think about this when you're home, sitting quietly. Bring someone whose memory you savor into your mind. Think about their compassion and what inspired you. And maybe you will be inspired to behave similarly. We know that as Jews, when people we love pass away, we try to honor their memory by doing kind acts and by taking qualities that these people we loved had and kind of trying them on and seeing if they fit and moving through life with their qualities. There are so many things that we can do to incorporate more kindness in our life as we are role models. Look for opportunities to help others and act on them. For example, if someone's walking behind you and you notice them, they're several paces behind, hold the door and say hello. Have the eye contact. Share another's act of kindness with someone else. Tell your kids about something you saw, or tell a friend about what somebody did that resonated with you. Maybe it's something you observed, read about in the newspaper, or learned about on social media. Share it. just as you can share unkind acts and say, what might that person have done differently? When you're watching movies with your kids or reading books with them, talk about the characters and why they chose to behave in certain ways and what contributed to their choices, so that you get deep into what it means to perform acts of kindness. And when you notice someone's act of kindness, remark on it. This will convey that you value kindness. If you are doing this in your family, do it as you see them. Or pick a specific time of the week when you talk about and acknowledge the kindnesses that you shared and experienced as a family. And as a reminder, please be kind to yourself. Some examples may be taking a 5-minute break to breathe, to walk, to look at an image that makes you feel relaxed, to listen to your favorite prayer or chant, reach out to a friend to discuss a tough situation. It may be telling your child, I don't know the answer to that. I need time to think about it. Let's talk about it tonight. Take care of yourself, because we have not got a bottomless pit. Even though we feel better when we help others, we must take care of ourselves. You know, one of your outstanding programs for the past 20 years is the Children's Readers Partners, which I mentioned before. I just want to mention that a great study was done, and it's been repeated, that when we read to children, we are really teaching them about giving. A great study that was done by Pearson about raising future philanthropists found that reading appears to have an impact on teens who become interested in charity. Why? Because children who are read to consistently say that reading helped them understand how they could make a difference, and those kids were more likely to be identified as giving teens. I know that shaping, and enriching are two of the values that you have as mapping as your initiative, and that's what you're doing. And a few other comments about role models. Teens who say that their parents explain the importance of giving and how they, the parents, help other people by their actions are children who will be more likely to give. Not just watching their parents give and do volunteer work, but hearing the message from their parents about what happens internally to them when they are in a relationship where they are giving and receiving. What are they receiving? What are they reflecting on? How are they transformed by their volunteer or their kindness acts? This is what helps children understand the power of giving and of becoming more charitable and kinder to their friends and people that they meet, people who are different from them. In our book, we talk a lot about formal and informal opportunities to model kindness. One of the most important ways to model kindness with someone of any age is to listen carefully to what they are saying without holding your phone and just focusing on them, being present and being there. And being there in a way that addresses their need, not your need. An attempt to engage with empathy to see what their experience is. Another way to model and nurture kindness is to catch someone in the act of being kind and point out when someone is doing something when you were on the receiving end. And when someone isn't so nice to you, rather than raise the bar, take a breath and start again. Perhaps you can say, seems like there's a lot going on. A lot of people need your attention today. That can be tough. Take your time. I'm not in a rush. Looks like today is a very demanding day. Offer kindness, even when your knee-jerk reaction may be, oh, I can't believe this person. No, take a breath. Send them some loving kindness. May you be well. May you be calm. Another way to model kindness, particularly as parents, is to apologize. I was really snappy with you this morning when we were rushing. I'm so sorry. I'd like to rewind the day, but I can't. I really think I should have said when I felt so rushed, we really need to go, and I'm sorry that I yelled at you and scared you. Tomorrow, let's try to get out a little earlier. When we model kindness by showing that we make mistakes, our children understand that nobody's perfect and that they can make mistakes too. And we learn from them, and we have another day to try. And when you're helping guide a young person to find a volunteer opportunity, try to have the young person engage in something that resonates with them, their interests, their talents, their gifts, their uniqueness, because that's what they're going to share with others. And then you can be present with your child and help guide them to find something that will be remarkably a good fit. I'd like to end my comments with something deeply personal. I recently lost two close friends 3 days before Rosh Hashanah. One of them wrote a letter to her 28-year-old son, a mother's parting gift, which reads something like a blueprint for life. Her husband very generously shared her letter with me, and I would like to read some excerpts from what she wrote. Quote, "Hope inoculates against despair and gives resolve to fight on and find something extraordinary in each moment. Constantly and deliberately, the others through a fresh set of eyes, experiences, without assumptions. Reach out from the smallest hello to the most courageous acts of loving kindness. Just reach out. Help and stand up for those who cannot help or stand up for themselves without expecting anything in return. This is what transforms us, heals us, and gives us the greatest joy and fulfillment in life. And in the end, yes, love definitely conquers all. May my friends' wisdom guide us as we build a strong and vibrant Jewish community by demonstrating kindness in our everyday actions." I will close with a quote from Reb Nachman of Breslov. "Let the good in me connect with the good in others until all the world is transformed through the compelling power of love." Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Atkins. That was truly beautiful, and that end story just blew me away. Thank you for sharing that. I know that was probably tough, but thank you so much. You gave us some great examples of how we can incorporate kindness into our everyday lives. So much to think about in this new year. We do have a few minutes for Q&A. The first one is about modeling gratitude and practicing gratitude. How do we model it and how do we practice it?
Well, Abraham Joshua Heschel said, "It is gratefulness which makes the soul great." And I truly love that quote. The Hebrew term for gratitude is hakarot hatov, and that literally means recognizing the good. So what I'd like to emphasize is, yes, there are so many things in each of our lives that we are bothered by, that we wish would be different. But when we make an effort, I mentioned before, Diana, looking through the lens of kindness, we can look through the lens of gratitude, notice what we are grateful for in our life. And once we start to recognize the good in small ways, we kind of train our brain and we train ourselves to notice the good in other areas of our lives. And gratitude, like kindness, has a contagion to it. So find one simple thing to give thanks for and write it down. Include the tiniest details because it makes us really focus. And then find one simple thing the next day or the next day. Gratitude journals are very popular now. People are encouraged to write 3 or 5 things that they're grateful for at the end of each day. And over a period of a month, we're noticing changes in these people's brains, and they really do feel more of an uplifted mood. So you can make a list, and when you're having a particularly difficult day, you look at that list and you remind yourself of the things that we are grateful for. I will share with you this morning. I took a walk, as I do every morning, And this morning I saw a bald eagle sitting on a branch way up. It was such a gift. I was so filled with gratitude. And had I not looked up, I wouldn't have seen it. So we kind of expect that there's going to be something to look for. Also, as Abraham Joshua Heschel reminds us, that we must always walk around with wonder and surprise and awe and look up, because there's always going to be something that we will notice and we can be grateful for.
Thank you. I think I'm going to start that gratitude journal tonight. I love that idea. We have another
Wonderful.
question, a little bit different. How do you talk to or have conversations with friends and family who are diametrically opposed politically during this time right now? That's been happening a lot. How do you work on that?
It is happening a lot. First, we recognize that perhaps what we really need to do is, if we can't talk about politics, find ways to talk about something that we have in common with this person, that we share, because we may really need to reinforce the relationship, and that can be a challenging thing to do at certain times. I think that what's important is, if you feel you can listen, and I mean really listen, actively listen, ask how they came to their position about something, and just be curious. Just be curious. It's a challenge. Listen to their experience. When you're engaged at that moment, your job is not to change their mind. Your job is to listen deeply. And sometimes we can't do this, but this is what is a useful thing to do. You cannot assume that you know the experience of this other person, and you can ask questions that demonstrate to them that you are listening, but also that you are really actively seeking to put yourself in their shoes. And don't worry, you don't have to change your own opinion. You can have differences of opinion. I think what's important is for people to feel that there is still a connection. Again, that human connection. I remember recently I was with a friend of mine, and we could not be further apart on the political continuum. And we were kind of inching towards the area that was a little bit of a different and difficult zone. And I said to her, "Do you want to go there now?" And she said, "No." I said, "Neither do I." And we didn't have to feel as if we were walking around a minefield. Sometimes we do talk about our differences, and sometimes we don't. But what we do is we acknowledge the deep care and concern that we share for each other and each other's families. And we've had some wonderful experiences together. And we don't get into a difficult situation, because in this case, it would be a little too risky. I do want to add, though, that sometimes when we set time aside and we try to remember the good things about this person, the things that we share, that helps us. At sometimes also, we just need to remember that sometimes our physical responses, our nonverbal language, is giving off a real sense of disapproval, a real sense of closing down. And we have to take responsibility for that. And I think that we can say, at another time, I'd like to share with you how I feel and why I've come to my experience of this. Because there you will find an area where you might be able to talk. It's not easy, and it's become particularly divisive now with so many areas of conflict.
Dr. Atkins, thank you so much. It looks like we have many more questions, but no time left. We really appreciate your thoughts and teaching us about kindness and empathy. We thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you. I wish you all well. I wish you a meaningful fast and a very healthy new year. And again, I appreciated the opportunity to be with you tonight.
And now I'd like to welcome Carrie back.
You mean you'd like to welcome Carrie Lackenbach? First, I want to express my appreciation, our appreciation, to you, our audience, for your understanding as we navigated the technical difficulties we had earlier. Thank you. I recently read a book, A Gentleman in Moscow. It's an excellent book if you haven't read it. The protagonist in that book uses a line that says the following: either you will master circumstances or circumstances will master you. I think you will agree, based upon what you've heard tonight, that Federation has met the challenges that we face this year with vigor and many successes. Thanks to all of you for being with us tonight. I would love to be able to invite you to join us now in ice cream, but for that, we'll look forward, God willing, to next year. We look forward for another year of building an even stronger, kinder, and more vibrant Jewish community with you. This meeting is adjourned.